This video is sponsored by TuneMy Music. More on them later. We all listen to music on our preferred music streaming service, whether that's on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, or services like Tidal and others. As someone who spends a lot of time listening to music, I previously created a video review of switching from my main streaming service, Spotify, to YouTube Music for a month. As that video actually performed quite well, I've been thinking about trying out other services, and I've recently made an impulsive purchase on the Apple HomePod Mini, which includes a 3-month free trial of Apple Music. So I thought for this video, I'd be comparing my experience using both Spotify and Apple Music, alongside both of their pros and cons. Now, I'm no stranger to Apple Music, and I have used it before, and one main standout of it is definitely the UI design. Come on, it's Apple. It's very simple, clean, and just well organized in general. I've had countless moments of thinking of moving from one service, Spotify in particular, to Apple Music just because of that UI. It's just so clean and it's very minimalistic. It can be very pleasing from the music cover art to the actual lyrics being more interactive, and another cool feature like Sing. But most of the time, honestly speaking, I'm not going to be constantly looking at my screen, so these minor features aren't that major. But compared to Spotify, if I had to say, just the whole experience of using the app is very nice and fluid, with organized libraries of artists, album, and songs in their own neat sections, which I would give a point to Apple Music for. Now, as I have used Apple Music before, I did have a couple of playlists still available from last time. However, these were made quite a while back and they needed a few new updates to them. This was also an issue which I previously mentioned in my last video of how I had switched from Spotify to YouTube Music and just how much of a drag it was to transfer older songs. But luckily, there is a website that allowed me to transfer music from one service to another with up to 500 songs. This website was TuneMy Music, a website that allows you to transfer 500 songs for free from one service to another. All you have to do is connect your account from a streaming service with your playlist to your new service you'd like to transfer your songs onto, and it automatically begins exporting the playlist from there. It actually doesn't take you that long to transfer all your songs from one playlist to another. It allows you to sync your playlists between two different streaming services. That way, as I'm using both Spotify and Apple Music, I can have the playlist being updated, and if I add songs, it also will be added on the other streaming service. And thank you again to TuneMy Music for sponsoring this video. Now, with the actual listening experience, one main aspect for Apple Music that is highly praised for is lossless audio. Compared to Spotify, you only provide compressed versions of the audio, which can tend to sometimes deteriorate and even reduce the sound quality. Now, when it comes to comparing Apple lossless to compressed Spotify audio, it's logical that a lot of people would say that when deciding between the two, it's definitely more noticeable for Apple's quality and that it takes the win. Alongside, it's also a major win if you are an iOS or Apple user, which will fit into your ecosystem, which I completely agree on as an iPhone and Mac user. And it's another plus for my most latest purchase of the HomePod Mini, which takes advantage of the lossless audio. So surely I'd agree that Apple Music provides better quality, right? Well, here's where I have a bit of an interesting take. I don't really understand the praise for it, and to be honest, I can't really tell if it's any better in actuality. I still prefer listening on Spotify's regular audio compared to Apple lossless audio. And before I get roasted for saying that, here's the reason why. It's got to do with the volume. For me, louder is better. This just might be my deaf self having a reason to be against Apple lossless audio, but I instantly noticed that the volume is way lower on Apple Music compared to Spotify. I thought it was just a couple of setting problems, which I did try to resolve, yet I was still having a hard time understanding why it made no difference. My initial thought that it was just the song, maybe even the album, or even the specific artists having a different file type for the different streaming platforms. So I decided to play around and compare with multiple other songs and albums, yet it was still quieter on Apple Music. And I also did try switching from lossless to high res to see the difference, yet the volume stayed the same. Again, I did hop on from my iPhone to my Mac and it was still the same again. Now, it's not like the audio was unlistenable or it was extremely quiet, and as someone who actually blasts very loud music into the ears, which is probably getting worse at this rate, that slight drop in volume seemed more like a drop in quality for me, as I really depend on loudness. I did also try searching up the reason for it online, and I found very few to barely any topics on it. However, if I do recall, I did read from a forum or hear from a video the Apple Music volume is a bit more limited, like there's a certain threshold. I may be totally wrong and might have forgot, but I'm just going to convince myself this is the reason why. As for my personal use cases, I've just been using Spotify a lot more outside of home, especially in places where it gets more louder. And I've only been using Apple Music mostly at home with the HomePod Mini. But if you are like me who solely blasts music into the ears 24/7, then Apple Music quality is perfectly fine. But for me, I'll be sticking to Spotify's audio. Also talking about audios actually, if you also listen to podcasts or audiobooks, then Spotify does have a greater advantage for having more available podcasts and also has audiobooks with premium. Whereas on Apple Music, podcasts and audiobooks are only available through iTunes as a separate subscription. So Spotify could be a better option for those of you who listen to audiobooks and do listen to podcasts. I mostly just mainly listen to music, so it's not that much of a need. I do just juggle around between the two, which is nice. Also for song availability, I listen to mostly mainstream music, so that's always available on both applications, so I don't really miss out on much. And if I do really want to listen to podcasts and audiobooks, I guess I can always hop on Spotify. Now, as someone who uses both Spotify and Apple Music, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Like Apple Music goes really well with the Apple ecosystem and iOS ecosystem, and this overall is just really nice to have that lossless audio for some users, whereas Spotify for me is better, as also pricing wise on Apple it's a bit more expensive, whereas Spotify I pay less as I pay for Duo. So it really does depend on your personal need. For me personally, I'll be sticking with Spotify, but I will come and use Apple Music now and then, as I do also like the service that they provide. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.